achievers are. In our school, we do 3 things. Firstly, you may not recognise those acronyms. We use baseline testing in Year 7 and in Year 9, so in the first year and 2 years later, to basically test our students' potential, their potential ability. These tests both test maths ability, not curriculum driven. They test vocab, they test non-verbal skills and general skills. And that gives us, not only in maths, but in other subject areas, a baseline ability for our students. We don't let these tests override our personal and professional judgment of students, but we use it together with our knowledge of the individuals in our classes to inform us and to allow us to set challenging and realistic targets. In addition to the baseline testing, we carry out regular common assessments across all students in our subject, probably about half-termly. We use these tests to monitor the individual progress of students against their starting point and also against one another. Finally, daily monitoring. Something that you all do, maybe without even knowing, in your class every day. You speak to your students, you speak to the whole class, you speak to individuals. You question them, you challenge them, you help them, and during that process, you get to know an individual's strengths and weaknesses. The next question that you need to answer is, what do you then do once you've identified who your high achievers are? In our school, we set our students. We use the baseline tests, the common assessments, and our teacher knowledge, our professional judgment, to put our students into ability classes. We have roughly 130 students in each year group, and we set into 8 different classes. About 22, 23 students in the top groups, fewer in the bottom groups, in the groups where the students need a little bit more one-to-one help. Some are in the top sets because they work really, really hard. They go away and do everything you ask them to do. They've got real drive, they work really hard. Others are in the top group and they've got there by having to go not very far out of their own comfort zones to get there. They're naturally talented. It's these students that we need to make sure that we challenge and we engage. In our school, we also follow an acceleration program. We accelerate some of our students to do their GCSE a year earlier than their peers. We find that this is very good because those students who are able to do that can then move away from the syllabus, from the confines of a syllabus in the following year, and we can really challenge them. We can get them to be doing maths, looking at problems for the enjoyment and for maths' sake, rather than for getting an exam result. Too often, exams are a mark of achievement. We have students who say, is this going to be in the exam? And that's all they want to know. So by accelerating students so that they've got the exam, and then we have time to challenge them, we get away from that issue.
Excuse me? It's allowed to ask?
Yeah, sorry?
Yeah, it's allowed to ask. I need to ask about something.
Would you like to wait to the end and then, or?
It's okay. It's okay.
Now that we've identified our high achievers, we need to do something with them. The Dubai Schools Inspection Bureau, they expect to see a 3-part lesson. When they come in and they look at your lessons, they expect to see a starter. They expect to see the main body of your teaching, followed by a plenary or a recap session. We're going to show you some methods now of challenging your high achievers through your starter and your main teaching. So your starters, they need to be interesting, get their attention, get them excited and enthusiastic about the lesson that's going to follow. So first place to differentiate, obviously in your starter, it could be in the context of the lesson that you're about to teach, or your starter can be a standalone. It's useful if your starter can have several layers, so that you're not going to have some people who finish quickly and some people still working on the problem. We're now going to get you to do something. So we're going to get you to try and do this starter. It looks like quite a simple starter. If you can't read it at the back, it says the pages of Jack's book. Very good name given the speech earlier. Jack's book are numbered from 1. The page numbers have a total of 555 digits. How many pages does the book have? Hopefully that's something that you'll get all your students to try. If you've got those high achieving students who finish quickly, they might want to go on to the second stage, which is how many of the digits are a 5. So we're just going to give you 3 or 4 minutes now. If you've got, you should all have pads in these bags. Have a go at doing this question. See if you get it right. There is a chocolate incentive, in case you're sitting there thinking, I really can't be bothered.
You don't drive always.
No. This does take a few minutes. It took me about 5 minutes yesterday. It's supposed to be a starter, so.
You're a high achiever. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of challenge in there. Some students would start by numbering, writing down on the page 1, 2, 3, and then start counting. They might then develop a strategy for dealing with that. They might then start identifying the number of pages with 1 digit, the number with 2 digits, the number with 3 digits, etc. And so it requires sort of logical thinking and a process to be developed. So it's more than just the simple problem that it might first have looked.
The answers come up now.
221 pages, 42 digits are 5s. Other types of starters don't necessarily need to be students working sort of individually at their desk. It could be a teacher-led starter. This next example we're looking at would be a teacher-led example. It's a target board. The aim is to ask questions and to get the students to answer questions. Created a target board like this and started to set up some questions. You can use these resources time and time again, and you can use them for different ability levels as well. It's just your questioning which is going to be different. This next example is a different topic, percentages, percentage change. You could get students to look at calculating percentage increase, percentage decrease, 1% increase followed by another percentage increase. For example, if a quantity, let's say £120 is increased by 20%, and then that is increased by 5%, what's the overall percentage change? How many of you have students who think that the answer would be 25%? Probably a few. So, once starters have been completed, what do you do with your student who always finishes quickly in your class?
A simple and effective way of challenging those students is to have a challenge wall, which we have in our classrooms, or a challenge box. We've just got a couple of examples here. This is a challenge wall they have in the IT department, which is just general questions about IT, split into Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 and 5. The second one, the one on the right, that was one from science, where they split it into biology, chemistry and physics, and into the various key stages. On our challenge wall, we have laminated problems that once a child's finished early, they can just go pick one of the questions off the wall, do the question, bring it to you to see what the solution is, and then just put it back once they've finished. Another thing that we think works well is something called the challenge box, and we have one of these in all of our classrooms. They're colour-coded, depending on what year group they're suitable for, and we get a lot of the resources from these books. Maths Challenge, edited by Tony Gardner. So a lot of the problems and the resources we've got from those books, and also from the website that we've written on the top of our screen. That's a very good website if you want to make a note of it. It's the Enrich Maths website.
They're sort of guided challenges, but with sort of an open-ended sort of context.
Going on to extensions. Another way you can extend your lessons, we've talked about extending our starters, we've talked about the main lessons with a challenge box, which is nice and simple and effective. You've got it ready there in your classroom. Another way is to incorporate into your lesson plans suitable extension problems. Have them prepared ready to inspire those students. You don't need to do every single question in the book. Develop within the students a desire to learn and to achieve higher. Mathschallenge.net, this is where we got this extension from. That's another website that you might want to make a record of. It's a really, really good website. They've got about 600 of these types of problems. And they're starred. They've got 1 star for the easier extension questions, up to 4 star for the harder ones. This is the one that we put on your chairs, so I've seen quite a few of you trying it already. Does anybody have an answer for this one? Excellent, it is. So this is quite a nice one to try. I think if you try this at home, you're more likely to actually try it in your class if you try it here or when you're just hanging around today. But yeah, the area is actually half AB. So that's quite a nice one if you are doing the areas.
Did you find it
of
challenging
syllables.
or easy? Your students would find it easy, would they, or would they be challenged by it?
No, I think they would.
The website also obviously gives all the solutions there as well, so if you're restricted for time and you don't have time to always work through it, they're obviously working through a problem. You do consider the problems that your students are going to have as you're doing it. You might not want, well, you might want to extend your whole class rather than just individuals who are finishing early. If you've got a top set, you might want to extend your whole class beyond the syllabus. There's lots of websites available where there's material for you if you don't have the time or the confidence to prepare something for yourself. This is rather boring sort of just to look at, but we just put it here for a bit of context. For us in the British curriculum at GCSE, we don't study logarithms. We do study indices. This sheet, this extension sheet, of which there's 2 parts to fit it on the screen, encourages the students to take their knowledge of indices further, to investigate, to try things out, to come up with conjectures, to come up with rules, through experimentation, through group work, through however you decide to set up your classroom for that particular topic. So that really does challenge your students. It challenges them because they're not just absorbing stuff that you're giving them. You're not telling them what to do. You're not showing them how to do something. You're getting them to think, to reason, to try things out, to make mistakes, to correct themselves. That's challenging us. Well, we find that is what students enjoy and what really does challenge them. The website that lots of these types of activities are available on is put at the top of the screen there.
Three-part lesson is integral to the way we teach at Dubai College, but it's good to try different techniques. So a varied approach maintains stimulation and interest, given that maths is probably a subject they'll do nearly every day. We don't want them to, you don't want to do the same thing with them every time. So rather than just being teacher-led, you might want to get the students up teaching a lesson. You might say, right, this group of students, your homework is to go away as a group and research a topic, and then come back next week and stand up here at the front and teach the rest of the class. Something else you might want to do is just get them working in groups through a problem. Get them doing investigations. If you're lucky enough to have a computer room, you might send them to a computer room to do maths. Peer assessment, get them to mark their own work and they can write their own comments. Like, yes, you did this very well, perhaps you should consider doing this. It's quite good to get them thinking about what somebody else has done wrong as well, rather than you always giving the feedback. A simple thing you might want to do in your classroom is just to change the seating. Rather than having some people just have rows of seats, or rows of tables and chairs. You might want, because for group work, you want people all together to discuss problems. You might want to just change the seating of your room. I've got a photo, there's 2 photos coming up. Obviously, the one on the right, there's a lot less pupils in there because that's a lower ability class. But if you look at the way the tables and chairs are arranged, I think all I need to say is, which classroom would you prefer to be learning in? Yeah, the first
Good
one.
answer. Correct
Good.
answer.
Twix for that right answer. Now that we've given you some ideas of things to try, we're just going to tell you about a few other things that we do at Dubai College. Our schemes of work are differentiated. So we have a column of work that we expect, or topics we expect every student to do. We'll have a middle column in our scheme of work that we expect most students to do, and then a final column which will be to extend those pupils in set 1 and set 2.
And occasionally other sets as
Yeah.
we feel appropriate.
Okay. Right, this diagram, this pretty picture here, it's taken from a document of our departmental aims, and the size of the text represents the frequency with which the word comes up in that document. So what you notice, obviously maths is going to be the key thing, but what you notice is the word teacher and student has the same emphasis, which we try and reflect in our teaching. You also, you also see the words, although they are slightly smaller, positive, fascination, enjoyment, satisfaction. So hopefully all those sort of things happen in our lessons as well. The next slide is taken from our Year 7 scheme of work. And again, it's the same principle. The size of the text shows you how often that word comes up in our Year 7 scheme of work. And the key things are skills, investigation, extension, comments. And it just demonstrates our belief in delivering a varied and challenging learning experience. Now we're going to look at some ideas that can be used in class to challenge not only your high achievers, but all students.
Investigations. Students are challenged, as I mentioned earlier, when questions are open-ended, when they're asked to investigate something, to find something out, to work on their own or in groups, rather than simply just absorb information that you're telling them. Keep coming back to that. Students do need to be trained how to do investigations, what strategies they need. I'm not going to focus on that right now because that's actually the topic of the next seminar in this room. But suffice to say, they need some training. You can't just throw an investigation at students and expect them to know the strategies that they need to use. This next example is an investigation that we use with our Year 9 students. Probably many of you have seen something similar or some variation of this, the painted cube problem. Essentially, a cube is painted, this time it's red, and students are led into the problem by looking at the number of smaller cubes that have 3 faces painted, 2 faces painted, 1 face and no faces. And then they're encouraged to look at other size cubes, look for patterns, come up with generalizations. Extensions would be cuboids, perhaps painting different coloured numbers of faces, etc. We do investigations termly with every class. And as I said before, the Year 7s will start with a lot more guidance. And then as they get into Year 8, they know the strategies or some of the strategies that they're going to be employing. So they build up their experience of doing these type of problems. John is now going to talk about competitions.
Looking at the time, we haven't got that much time left, so I'll be quite brief. We have competitions in our school that involve the whole school, and the questions are taken from the website above there, the United Kingdom Mathematics Trust, where they publish their previous papers, their previous questions. So it's a free website, you can go onto there and select questions. So we encourage our students, if they enter the first round, they get house points. And then from there you have a second round, a third round, and then the fourth round is a written paper lasting an hour in the exams hall. Look how much fun they're having. But yeah, you can get questions, ideas from this website that we've written at the top there, and an example of which would be something like this, which obviously you could use this as your starter, you could use this as in your recap session, or you could use it to make your own competitions. So all these cuboids have the same volume.
One for year 7.
Yeah, all of these cuboids have the same volume. Which one of them has the greatest surface area? As a starter, that would probably take them quite a long time to do.
So at the start of this talk, I mentioned that the teachers needed to have courage to do something different. This next slide that I'm going to show you is something that I'm going to be doing different next term. It's an idea based on when Shonit was saying that you could get your students to teach each other, to prepare a topic, and come back and teach each other, teach you whatever. This next idea incorporates ICT. Getting your students to film a screencast, upload it onto YouTube of, it could be a particular topic that you've chosen, it could be an investigation they've looked at, it could be a problem that they solved, but it sort of incorporates the maths skills, IT skills, and I don't know how it's going to go, I haven't done it yet, but it's in my program to have the courage to try next term. Sven-Göran Eriksson, famous ex-football manager of the England football team, obviously, he said that the greatest barrier to success is the fear of failure. So what I hope some of you will do is to go out and try some of these ideas. If they don't work, you can try something different, but if they do work, then great, you'll have tried something new. We've talked in this session, we've talked about different starters and extensions you might want to try. We've talked about investigations, challenges, introducing maybe a challenge box or a challenge wall. So, could we just have a show of hands? How many people in here think that at least they'll try at least one of these things that we've talked about today? We've got over 90% there.
I think so. Objective achieved. So this is just basically what we've talked about today. So this is your opportunity to ask us any questions.
You were asking earlier, yes.
First of all, I really appreciate what you are doing in Dubai College. It's really nice. But my question is about differentiation. If I have small size of student, they are high achiever, how we really can challenge them? And the challenging, it means we need some differentiation between some little bit high average student and gifted one.
Yeah.
In this case, we can really challenge. But if I have all masters, how we can really challenge? This is my question.
If you have
all student gifted student, for example, as in your school, you are having 8 sections. For example, there is low achiever, they are in one class. And average student, they are in another class, and the high achiever in one class.
Yeah.
How we can challenge, for example, the low achievers, and how we can challenge the average student also too. If we mix some.
If they're in the same class.
Yeah, we can do some differentiation.
Well, you're answering the question yourself, really.
Yeah.
You need to have differentiated material. Obviously, it's harder to handle when your students are all in one class because there's you and there's different groups.
Yeah.
The open-ended problem that give the guidance to the student, but the high achievers shouldn't need to have something taught to them, something fed to them. They need a way in to whatever it is that you're looking at, but they should then be given the guidance, the questions, the questioning to extend and to challenge themselves.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, thank you very much for your contributions, it's been great. My question is in relation to early entry, and I wonder if people in the room might be able to help out. I'm new to Dubai and previously had used early entry with students in a similar manner that you had described. Since arriving, I work in a school with lots of Emirati students, and the understanding I've got so far is that the only qualifications that will count in the eyes of the ministry is those qualifications taken in year 11. So therefore it would imply, if that is the correct information, that taking GCSEs in year 10 would not, and then moving on to something else, you know, if we've got students who can achieve the top grade at that point, it won't actually count as a GCSE, and therefore they would have to redo it in year 11. I don't know if anyone has come across similar.
Our students who do GCSE a year early, we extend and challenge them in year 11. They actually do a further qualification in year 11. We follow the additional maths course, but within that, because there are elements of that which are GCSE and elements which are A-level, because there's elements of GCSE in it, we do find that we have the time in that 1 year course to go and do other interesting things as they arise, as the topics arise. So,
but in terms of, if my understanding is that if a child did that, which I would love to happen,
yes,
and completely,
yeah,
and that's the right thing, they would be technically without a GCSE in mathematics, from a ministry point of view for Emirati students.
Know. I would have to ask. I mean, it's not a problem that I've had to face. So
anyone else?
I can't answer that any further.
Speak to me afterwards if anyone has any.
Yeah.
Next question.
Yes.
When you say you guys have common assessments,
Yes.
you also have 6 groups,
Yes.
and they are 6.
Yes.
The big problem we have with those common assessments, because we are not a UK curriculum
Yes.
school, are your common assessments common for all A groups? Is the top 6
There's a
the
core.
same
There's
as
a
the
core
A?
element.
Yeah.
We always put a core element.
Right.
Say the first sort of 2/3 of the paper will be common, and then
The
yes,
higher
yeah.
ones
So
are-
it may be that the higher sets have an extension at the end, and the lower sets have an easier start to it. But it's like the old GCSE, like the GCSE, the tiered GCSE. We have a common element that we are able to compare.
And that's
yeah.
what you use for setting.
Yes. Any other questions? Yeah.
Usually we land up teaching a mixed ability class because culturally it's very difficult to tell a student that we are going to segregate you in a group, high achievers and low achievers. So I'll end up teaching in a mixed ability class. So how do you handle it? Like when you tell a student that you're going to put him in a set A, so what happens culturally where I come from? The parents go against it. They say no. I mean, so it becomes a big issue. So we land up teaching in a mixed ability class. And then we just teach in one style, because you have a lot of limitations when it comes to a mixed ability class. So
it is something. I mean, I'm regularly in contact with parents who are concerned about their child being in a lower set. I think one of the things that I use for reassurance is the fact that by setting the students, we're able to focus our attention on that class's needs, and that their child will get the very best education that they can get by being in that group. Yes, and because their needs are being met. It doesn't solve the problem. I still get phone calls, but
in year 7, they're tiered. They're
yes,
A, B, and C rather than set 1 to 7.
So we start in year 7 when we put the students into sets. We actually put them into bands in year 7. So we have an A band, 3 groups which are B band, and 2 groups which are C band. Yes.
Yeah, at the end, all the sets they will sit for the same exam.
Same GCSE, yes, the same A levels. So it's really so to enable us as teachers to focus our teaching style, our methodology on the students that we have in the class and their needs. The purpose of putting them into the sets. Obviously, you do require your timetable to be set up so that maths all students in a particular year group are studying maths at the same time, and that's something that we have in our school.